damage. Now, I'll then get to you, Samuel. Well, Africa is a young continent, and these young people are energetic, they're passionate, they're entrepreneurial, but yet they're at the forefront of loss and damage, and of course, the risk of climate change, as you've heard. What I want to ask you, and I want you to go straight to the point, is have young people been forgotten in the fight to win back against climate change? And if so, what do you think needs to be done?
Okay, thank you so much. And it's been a wonderful conversation so far. So I would say that young people has been forgotten in the fight for climate action in regards to assessing the resources needed for them to, boost up their work. And then from our own end, part of what we've been doing is to take up research to actually understand the concept of loss and damage, especially those in vulnerable communities, and then using some sub-Saharan African countries as case studies where we've discovered how vulnerable they are, their risk and then threat vulnerability. And then we've also been able to carry out some systematic reviews in these particular regions to know what their ultimate pressing needs are. So for we young people, the part of our role in this whole thing is trying to provide young people with knowledge to close those knowledge gaps that exist in the climate space, and also organize capacity building trainings and workshops to make sure that they have the right skill and the right ability to address climate change. And this has been a major growth for us. And what we are also looking at in the loss and damage is closing the funding, the gapping limitations that exist in the loss and damage fund, because we've seen situations where the GCF fund, the adaptation fund, part of this fund that may, like the GCF, which we know according to the report by International World Institute, cited that about 24% of the GCF funds covered loss and damage, but not explicitly. So part of what we as young people are trying to do is to make sure that the loss and damage fund, which we know should be a separate fund, should have a bottom-down approach, where people can be able to have access to this fund directly in local communities, and then without restricting access, without giving them heads up, without giving them barriers.
Yes, Samuel, that's a very good point you're bringing up, and your starting point was that yes, young people have been forgotten, and you have also indicated there is already work that you young people across the continent, including yourself and your organization, are doing. So I want to ask this: the point that you are bringing now, getting to the communities to be able to engage communities, young people, the informal sector. So my question to you is, are these young people prepared? Are their skills being retooled? Because even if they have access to finance, do they have the requisite skills? And if not, what are you guys doing to be able to ensure that their risk can be reduced, but at the same time, they have the right skills if they were to get access to finances? Very briefly.
Okay, so I would say young people are prepared, because if you look at most of the initiatives that are being pioneered right now in addressing climate change issues, especially for vulnerable communities, they have been pioneered and, projected by young people in these different communities. And also, if you look at most of the research that have been taken up, is also being handled and headed by young people. So they are well prepared. And part of also what we are doing beyond preparation is also to equip them with the necessary skills needed to move ahead. At times, there could be limitations in the areas of assessing data, assessing information, and apart from that, assessing mentorship support for them to be able to move on. So this is what we are doing from our end. And as young people all over the world, we are already seeing the leadership of young people in addressing climate change issues, looking at locally led adaptation measures to boost local community adaptation capacity. Apart from that, looking at advocacy championed by young people, looking at campaigns. So there's a lot of things young people are doing. But the question that we are actually confronted with is, when are young people going to be invited or onboarded on the decision-making board or decision-making table to take part in the policy process, in the negotiation process? Because at the end of the day, when young people pioneer lots of this initiative, they are always forgotten. They are always at the background, and when the fund comes, it doesn't even flow down. So it's at the peripheral level. And that is what we as young people, we are trying to make sure it doesn't repeat itself, especially with the loss and damage fund. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, the proper preparation prevents poor performance. So from what you are saying means you guys are prepared to make sure that you are part of the table. But always remember, if you are not part of the table, you are part of the menu, and then get a folded chair and set up your own table. I think that is what you are doing. And thank you very much for the great work you are doing across the continent.